Hello, Gamecock fans. I'm Spencer Ball.
And I'm JP Barry. Welcome to Ball Don't Lie, SGTV's premier live sports show.
JP and I will be giving you our weekly insight every Friday.
This week on the show, Gamecock baseball, softball, and hockey.
And later, a highly anticipated week of college basketball.
Be sure to stick around for head-to-head pick'ems.
And without further ado, welcome to Ball Don't Lie.
Welcome to the Kennedy Greenhouse Studio.
I'm Spencer Ball.
And I'm JP Barry.
This is the one where there's a right answer and there's a wrong answer.
I'm always the get-back game guy.
There's so many teams with so many good wins.
Because, they love seeing Clemson lose no matter what.
Well, I think there's a lot of people that love seeing Clemson lose.
Yeah,
Return of the King released 20 years ago today. There you go. And for that reason, give me the Noles.
I like being right more than I like being happy.
I think the committee made the right choice.
Florida State did not lose a football game. It's football. This is college football. How can you not be romantic about baseball? It's just such a tremendous sport.
It's time. Is it time?
I think it's time.
This is Ball Don't Lie.
Gamecock baseball swept Milwaukee over the weekend and dominated Gardner-Webb on Tuesday on the way to a 9-0 record. It's been a good start for the boys.
It has. It's been interesting because they haven't been winning games by too many until recently. They struggled a little bit on Friday and Saturday, but Sunday they got the run rule win against Milwaukee to complete the sweep. Then on Tuesday they got the run rule win to beat Gardner-Webb.
And
say that five times fast.
They had one run rule win against Sacred Heart as well. So kind of one big explosion of offense once a weekend. I think you'll take that. But again, it's been good signs so far for the team. And really, I was at the Gardner-Webb game. There was the lovely sunset over Founders Park. And they started a little slow, but the bats got hot. They hit 5 homers in that game. And I think this offense is definitely getting into gear as the season's progressing. And no bigger task than this weekend, right, JP?
Yeah, they're facing their first big test of the season this weekend as the Palmetto Series begins tonight at Clemson's Doug Keensmore Stadium, all the way up in the upstate Spencer. It's going to be a good one. We have our pitching rotation for this series, save for the Gamecocks on Sunday. Tonight, it's Aiden Knack versus Matthew Becker. 2 Friday night starters for both of these teams from Dylan Eskew, but he's dealing with something in his back, so they're just playing it safe right now.
Yeah, he left after 2 innings against his Sacred Heart start last Friday. Coach Maneri did say that he threw a really good bullpen, so they're expecting him to pitch, but it hasn't been made official just yet, so we're not gonna go ahead and make that claim for the team. They know better than we do. But somebody will be pitching at Founders Park on Sunday. But this Clemson team, JP, can you give us a little rundown on them? Because they're pretty talented.
They're very talented. They were very good a year ago. Got upset in their regional by the Florida Gators en route to their,
one of the coolest.
One of the best games we've seen in a long time. But they brought back a lot of talent for this year's team, including Cam Canarella, who is one of the best outfielders in college baseball. But they hit the transfer portal hard as well. But, the offense isn't the issue for this team right now. They scored 20 runs in their win against Winthrop in the midweek. It's been the pitching for them. They're 7-1. Their one loss is to Ole Miss, 15-5 in the Shriners Children College Showdown at Arlington. But, Ethan Darden's been really good out of the rotation for them. He's got a sub-2 ERA and 10 innings pitched. But Knack has a 6 ERA, and LeGuernick has an 8.22. And the bullpen hasn't been much better either. So when they're on, this team has been, what we kind of expected as one of the best teams in college baseball. But, man, it's been when the wheels fall off, the offense has had to kind of carry the load. And you don't want to have one of those games against the South Carolina lineup.
Couldn't have said it better because, again, your offense can score runs. They're probably going to score some against South Carolina, but it's how much you're giving up, especially to teams like Winthrop. You're still giving up 7 runs. Even in the games they won in that.
And North Carolina A&T, they gave up like 8, I think.
Yeah, they're giving up, 5 runs to Oklahoma State, a good 5 to Arizona, 15 to Ole Miss. You definitely want to have at least one of those starters you can look to and be like, here's our lockdown guy. And right now, they don't have one, I would say, so far.
Darden's been the best, he's only thrown 10 innings, exactly. So how do you know?
Which is a good thing, I think, for them because, the season's young. So you're going to have a little bit more time to, see if someone really emerges as their number one guy and really a dominant starter. But they're definitely going to need to play well this weekend because it's a huge rivalry. It doesn't matter the sport. We're going to get to another Clemson-Carolina game a little bit later in the show. But, I mean, these two teams don't like each other. But Paul Mainieri talked about, he lives for these rivalry games. And I think that's what makes not just college baseball so fun, but just sports in general.
Absolutely, and I don't think there's a rivalry that takes the forefront in college baseball quite like Carolina-Clemson. I mean, they faced off in the NCAA tournament countless times. It feels like every year people project them to face each other in a regional or something like that.
Yep.
And then one day it'll happen and the state will burn to the ground. But maybe it's this year. But South Carolina looking for a big opportunity. But they're not the only diamond sport that has a big-time matchup against the top 10 ACC team, isn't it, Spencer?
Absolutely. Moving on to softball, they're also undefeated. Just one of two teams in the nation with an undefeated baseball and softball team, Oklahoma being the other. They traveled on the road and head to number 8 Duke. It's a really good softball team. But again, the Gamecocks proving that, with the new head coach, Chastain Woodard, they're yet to be stopped.
No, they aren't. I mean, a 16-0 start. It is something very, very impressive to see here. They swept the Garnet and Black Invitational we talked about a week ago. And it was really not close. I mean, the fact of the matter is that they're just beating these teams, and they're getting these run rule victories. And, I mean, this is their first major they beat North Carolina, who was ranked, but a full weekend series against a top 10 team. This is where you're going to find out really kind of where you stand, at least right now in the season, against the pecking order of the college softball world.
Yeah, absolutely. Duke is a great test for what the SEC teams have to come, but someone who's really, writing her name early in the season as one of the best pitchers in the country is Jory Hurd. She's been outstanding. She was named the SEC Pitcher of the Week from February 17th through the 24th. She finished the week 3-0, didn't give up an earned run, 12 Ks, 15 innings pitched, only allowed 5 hits with a 100 batting average against her. I mean, just a really dominant stretch, but last year we saw flashes that, this is the pitcher she can be, and it seems like she's just leveled up this year.
Yeah, it's about sustaining it, and that's what she's done. It's been really impressive to see. And I can't wait to watch this weekend series against Duke. But before we get to the full weekend, tonight is senior night for Gamecock Hockey. They're going to be celebrating 9 graduating players at the Plex before their postseason push as they look to repeat as national champions. Spencer, it's not just senior night for players, it's senior night for broadcasters as well.
It is.
But before we get into that, let's take a look at who's graduating and who's being honored for the Gamecocks tonight.
Yeah, I'll just run through the 9 seniors that are graduating. It's Rona Mulcairn, Marco Pineda, Nick Kay, Josh Wilkins, Connor Berman, Drew Henderson, Adam Feldman, Ian Hoover, and Peter Papadopoulos. And, you just can't say enough about this group of guys because they're the first Gamecock hockey group that can leave champions. You had the guys last year, but, from the guys before, we saw there was that montage that really went viral from when they won last year, from their loss a couple years ago when they made a deep tournament run, but, fell, I believe, to Tampa. And it's just a testament to what they've built. And it's going to be an emotional game. I think it's going to be really fun. I know we're on the call one last time at the Plex, and that's a lot of fun in itself. But it's not just South Carolina that has the seniors graduating. They take on a Clemson team that also has 9 seniors graduating. It's the first time they're taking on South Carolina this semester. And really, JP, for a group that has never lost to the Tigers on ice, what better way to go out?
Exactly. Before you go into your tournament push, you're playing a team that's not going to play in a tournament, perhaps because of their interesting suspension from last semester.
I don't think they were able to play enough games to make the tournament.
I don't think they were able to qualify because they were suspended for the entire fall semester. But it's a game. It's a game that historically favors South Carolina a lot. And Spencer, it's been so much fun to kind of watch this team grow over the years.
Here they are.
I know. So many of these guys graduating for South Carolina, we've just seen make big plays in big games. Rona Mulcairn, Marco Pineda, Nick Kay, all alternate captains who have made their marks. Josh Wilkins, Connor Berman, and Drew Henderson have really kind of had big-time goals their whole career. And then Ian Hoover has been a huge addition this year. He's really seen his play time increase as the year's gone on. But, it's not just senior night for South Carolina. We've had the pleasure of kind of following some of these Clemson players like Captain Cade Heinold, who's really probably the best player I think I've ever seen from this Clemson club.
100%. And again, looking up the history of this rivalry
is difficult.
It's very hard because the websites don't have like a cumulative history.
Yeah.
So, you have to like keyword search on Twitter. I can't find the last time that Clemson's beat South Carolina. It's been a while. It certainly has. We can't find the last time, but Clemson, they're not playing in a tournament. They've got this game circled in red, man. This is their way to try and end on top. They're not going to have a postseason to look forward to, but what better way to finally get a victory over South Carolina on their senior night? I mean, those guys have never experienced the victory. We talked about South Carolina never losing to Clemson. Those guys for Clemson have never beaten South Carolina, and you know that they're going to come out and play with everything they have. It's going to be an awesome night at the Plex, and shamelessly, be sure to tune in. It's going to be awesome. Me and JP will certainly have emotional words after, on our epic sign out. But again, it's been great to see this team grow and just play. It's just awesome.
Absolutely. We're going to hit a quick break right here, but don't go anywhere. We've got college basketball coming up right after the break.
Welcome to Simply Sports, the show where we simplify the rules of sports so you can enjoy the game.
Now let's start it off in the Tar Heel State. It's an in-state matchup between Wake Forest and the Duke Blue Devils. JP, in theory, this is a fun matchup. Wake Forest, however, does not want to make the NCAA tournament.
I think that's a great way to put it, Spencer. They don't. They just don't. And they really have, they had Duke on the ropes the last time they played, and Wake was in tremendous position to make the dance. And since that, they've dropped games to, the Louisville Cardinals by 13. They've lost to unranked teams like Florida State and Virginia most recently.
Yeah.
And it's just, it's killed them. And they just struggle, man. They were safe in the field. And then they weren't. They've done this the last 3 years in a row.
Last year it was to the Irish.
Yeah, last year that's who they play on Saturday, and it's a Notre Dame team that they beat Pitt a week ago. They really kind of played Clemson very tough on Wednesday, and you have to play them this year. If Notre Dame can defend the three-pointer, which they can, Wake Forest is screwed, and that's what's happened. Wake Forest is just they've played around and they've gotten bit. And they haven't done anything to adjust to it. And it sucks because we're going to see guys like Hunter Salas never make the dance.
Yeah. And that stinks because Wake Forest really, they do still have a chance.
They do. They need to win on Saturday, and then they need to win on Monday.
Yeah. No, it's really, you have to win out. Notre Dame, in theory, Wake Forest should be able to win that one. Should.
You'd think.
You would think they might. It would be typical if they'd lose to Notre Dame and then beat Duke.
Yeah.
But let's take a look at who they're taking on. Again, it's a Duke team we've talked about all year long. Everyone's been talking about them, and for great reason. They're unbelievable. Cooper Flagg, Con Knippel, just the two star freshmen of this team. They're a dominant squad.
They are. They're the highest-rated KenPom team ever, except for 1999 Duke. They're
it's good company.
Yeah. They have just been blowing teams off the face of the planet. There are only 3 losses to Kentucky and Kansas on neutral floors, and on the road against Duke, or on the road against Clemson. At home...
on the road against Duke, that's a good practice squad. I get it.
At home, Duke has been impenetrable. They got good news that Tyrese Proctor seemingly is not as hurt as they thought. And that's going to be huge as they take on Florida State at home on Saturday before the game against Wake Forest. the Seminoles have been playing decently as of late. They beat Wake Forest. They kind of put the fear of God into some teams. But
and we should mention that Wake Forest did have at least a 20-point lead over Florida State.
Yep.
That would be,
that's
just
important.
in case you weren't watching that, low-ranking ACC matchup. Wake Forest should have won. They decided not to. So it's again, just kind of unfortunate for the Demon Deacons. JP, what do you think they have to do to try and hang with Duke?
Well, they got to be able to hit the three. It's weird. They're a team that every year under Steve Forbes, they've been a great shooting team. This year, they're one of the worst in the country, and you keep thinking they're going to finally break out of it, and then they don't. And so they're going to have to hit, 7 or 8 threes, and, maybe employ the strategy that some of the other teams that have beat Duke have done, which is let Cooper Flagg kind of get his, but just don't get beat by anybody else. And, if they can do that, this would be, the biggest win for Wake Forest since they beat Duke last year. Yeah. And, they need to keep on rolling if they can win that game. Because we want to see this team in the tournament. They just refuse to make it.
And really, it's self-inflicted because they've had a lot of opportunities. And, you can say, well, they haven't beaten a ranked team yet. Frankly, they wouldn't have needed to if they just took care of business against the teams that are, frankly, inferior to them. But, we're going to move on. But, again, keep your eye on that one because the Demon Deacons aren't dead yet.
They aren't. And neither is the West Coast Conference, as tomorrow night, the Beavs of Oregon State are taking on ranked St. Mary's in Moraga, California. Both teams coming into this one. It's the regular season finale for both squads. Oregon State in their first year in the West Coast Conference. Meanwhile, the Gales, a routine power, have clinched that regular season championship and are ranked for the first time in quite some time, Spencer.
Yeah, and these are two teams that play a little bit similar, JP. Very slow offenses.
Oh, God, yes.
If you like, the half-court offense, slow tempo, I don't know, games that end in the 50s. You're going to love this one. But again, Oregon State has a great chance to play spoiler here. St. Mary's wins the West Coast Conference. JP, tell us a little bit about Oregon State's head honcho.
Yeah, Michael Rataj, he's a junior who's been at Oregon State all 3 years, and he does everything for this team. He leads them in points per game, rebounds, steals, and blocks. And, he's the one man keeping the dam from exploding. And because, they've been up and down all year. He's been the one constant. It's their first winning season since they went to the Elite Eight in 2021. And they can hit the three ball well. They upset Gonzaga at home. It's been a good season for the Beavers, and they can really kind of cement that by pulling off another upset on the road against St. Mary's.
Yeah, this would be, huge for them just in terms of their season. And JP, a 21-win team and make a little run in the West Conference Coast Tournament. Crazier things have happened, but again, you just want this for your program. You want to settle into your new conference, and what better way to do it against the number one team, St. Mary's. Let's take a look at them. Again, led by the Lithuanian Ironman. I like that. Son of Sarūnas Marciulionis. It's Augustus. Augustus? Why did I call him Augustus?
I don't know.
That was goofy. JP, take it away on St. Mary's. Well,
but
I have my Georgia moment this week.
Randy Bennett's squad, they are just such a constant out west. Everyone talks about Gonzaga, but St. Mary's has been doing this for over 20 years at this point. And it's one of their best teams yet. They're a projected 6th seed in the dance. They're 9th in adjusted defensive efficiency. And, outside of Augustus, they're really kind of a by-committee squad. They have 6 players averaging 8 or more points per game. And Augustus averages over 35 minutes played in each contest. He leads the team in points per game, assists, and steals. And like you said, these teams are very similar. Slow. This game could very well end like 41-39.
It could. And again, that's how St. Mary's wants to play. I think it's one of the most but they've cemented their style in college basketball. You hear St. Mary's, you know exactly how they're going to play basketball. It's slow. They work it down low to their bigs and try and, penetrate the paint, get it to their guards, kick out, stuff like that. And really, they just want to wear you down. And that's what they're going to try to do against Oregon State. Again, I think for the Beavs, it's all about the three ball. You got to especially in what could be a low-scoring game. You got to capitalize on your opportunities and really cash in on the shot from deep.
Yeah, you're going to get opportunities for open looks, and you just got to make them when you get them. And a big key, I think, for St. Mary's is don't send Oregon State to the free throw line. The Gales are very good at doing that. But if they do send them to the line, Oregon State's going to knock them down. They're top 10 in free throw percentage.
They sure are. We're going to move on to, I would say, the most closely contested conference title race. It's the Big Ten as Wisconsin travels to East Lansing to duel number 8 Michigan State on Sunday. JP, this is an awesome game. And again, it's just, there's no clear-cut favorite in the Big Ten right now.
No, there isn't, but man, Michigan State just keeps on winning. They won on the road against Michigan a week ago, and now they get a chance here at home against Wisconsin, a team that's been really kind of a surprising squad this year, Spencer.
An under-the-radar squad for sure. I don't think they've been, I would say, talked about enough, but they have one of the best transfers in the country. JP, could you tell us a little bit about number 9?
Yeah, John Tonje leads them in scoring with nearly 20 points per game. He also averages 5 rebounds, but man, he makes it count when he gets to the charity stripe. 91.3% from the line. I mean, that's just
numbers.
That's all you want to see from your guard. But they're also supplemented by the forward, John Blackwell, who averages 15 and 5. This team, they don't turn the ball over, but they also don't force turnovers. It's all about the offense for them under Greg Gard, as they're having another great year with him.
Yeah, and again, really, I would say a surprising season. I don't think many people had Wisconsin this high up.
No, yeah, they're projected as the top 3 seed in the NCAA tournament. A win here would definitely knock them up into that 2-seed range.
Yeah, and it's a battle between other Big Ten teams. It's Michigan State, and Wisconsin, really all just punching each other in the mouth, seeing who's going to get the 2, who's going to get the 3. But for Wisconsin, they blew a huge 15-point lead in the second half to lose to Oregon the other day. That did not help their case. But again, you've got to go on the road to the Breslin Center to see if you can take down Sparty. Let's take a look at them after their huge win against Maryland.
I'm sure you saw that. Trey Holloman.
I started giggling,
the 60-foot buzzer beater to upset the Terrapins on the road. They beat Michigan handily in Ann Arbor in the game we covered last week. And, last week we talked about Jaden Atkins and him as the senior leader on this team. But then you look at Jeremy Fears Jr., another guy who's been in the program a while. He leads them in assists, steals, and for a team that shoots under 30% from deep, he's easily their best shooter at nearly 40%. Spencer, tell me a little bit about Michigan State and just how they've kind of gotten here.
I've loved nothing more. This is one of my favorite teams in the country. I love Tom Izzo, and really, they do it by committee. I mean, I think Tom Izzo said in his postgame the other day, it's the 17th time this season that all 10 guys have scored in their game. I mean, they get everybody involved. It doesn't matter who, everybody contributes. They hit the bench early and often, and frankly, if you're not playing good, they've got a plethora of guys they can go to. I mean, in March, that is so valuable. But really, it's been Jace Richardson as of late who's been awesome. He gets to the rack really quickly. He's got a great handle to him, knows how to navigate the pick and roll, and he was giving Maryland fits all game, and especially in that first half.
Yeah, he's been a joy to watch as the season progresses. The true freshman, very talented. And
Jason Richardson, Mike.
Yes, and moments like Wednesday night with buzzer beater, half court heaves, they remind you of March. And ladies and gentlemen, we're knocking on the door. We're one day away from March. So let's take a look at 3 more teams on our bubble watch fighting for those last at-large spots in the tournament, starting with Spencer, your North Carolina Tar Heels.
Oh, I mean, don't give me hope. They might. I think it all comes down to one big game, doesn't it, JP?
It does indeed.
Yeah, I mean, you've got Miami. You got to go on the road to Virginia Tech. But to close it out on your home court, you've got a chance to get the second quad one win you've been searching for all year long. It's number 2 Duke. You need the big win. And frankly, it's a weak bubble this year.
It really is. I mean, it's notoriously bad. And you look here, this team is in the 40s in pretty much everything, net, KenPom, and then we're talking about wins above bubble. I added that to the graphic this week, which is an important resume metric. It's like, well, what would the average bubble team look like with your schedule or something? It's like, how would they perform?
Yeah.
And so North Carolina is kind of right there because, they're 1-10 against quad one. That has been really unfortunate. They haven't gotten the big one there, but they're 17-1 against everyone else.
And really, a lot of things just haven't fell their way. You know, I mean, you've lost countless one-score games. But something to note, they're making some administrative changes. Hubert Davis got a contract extension through 2030, and they signed a basketball general manager going to come in next year. And, you know, with the changing NIL landscapes and such, I've heard multiple things that I think is going to take that part off of Davis's plate so he can really focus a lot more on coaching. But again, that's a lot more for the future. This UNC team has to stick in the now. First off, got to take care of the Hurricanes and the Hokies. Then it all comes down to Duke, and you've got plenty of film you can watch on what not to do.
Yeah, exactly. One of the more brutal beatdowns we've seen in that long storied history. But we're going to move on to our second team here, the George Mason Patriots of the 8-10. They suffered a tough loss on the road last week against VCU to fall to second in the 8-10, and thus they end up here on Bubble Watch. They are a mid-major team that, frankly, I think deserves it over a lot of teams, but to quote Clint Eastwood, deserves got nothing to do with it. They just got to take care of business, and, I mean, you look here, these aren't terrible teams, Duquesne and Richmond especially, but you got to take care of business against them, get to 25 wins, and really, their metrics aren't that bad for a mid-major squad. They're 1-3 against Quad 1, but two of those are on the road against Duke and Marquette in the non-con. And then
I respect the team for scheduling those games.
Absolutely. George Mason is just such a fun team.
Yeah.
And I hope to God that they get the nod. But they can always play their way in by winning the A-10 tournament title. That's one of my favorite tournaments. It's so hotly contested. It's a great year this year, even beyond VCU. You got Dayton, St. Joe's, St. Bonaventure.
Davidson's a
St.
flashy
Louis,
team.
Davidson.
Yep.
It's a great tournament, but that adds to the peril for George Mason and VCU. If they drop a game to a pesky squad in the A-10 tournament and they get left out for like 17-14 Ohio State, that would just suck, man.
I think it's feast or famine. I mean, really, you gotta take your opportunity. Frankly, you can't expect to get in. You just gotta
don't leave it up into the hands of the committee.
Don't make it a chance. You just gotta go and try and win out. And definitely try and make a run in the A-10 tournament. I think that's the clearest way in. Again, Jalen Haynes is their leading guy, 13 points per game, 7 boards, shooting 56% from the field. Really great forward, and again, in a really fun conference. JP, we are going to move on to one of the more interesting teams we've ever had in Bubble Watch. I'll let you do the honors, my friend.
Yeah, we're going to talk about the UC San Diego Tritons of the Big West. Fresh off of the rise from Division II, they have moved to 25-4. They're a team that controls their own destiny, Spencer. They're first in the Big West, a half game ahead of UC Irvine, the traditional power in that conference. And man, they are in the top 40 in net and KenPom as a team that it's their first year that they can even play in the conference tournament, Spencer.
And you're just really scared for this team that, oh God, if they don't win the Big West, they're not going to get in. And they probably deserve to get in no matter what. I mean, this is a team that really, I mean, they are playing their butts off right now, and they do it in an unconventional way. It's a very small roster. They've got one guy over 6'8" on the entire team, and he doesn't really even play. So you've got just a really fast group of short guys who could just shoot the ball, man.
And they're led by, and I'm going to try and get this right, he's from New Zealand, the land of the Lord of the Rings, Enawaniwa Tyke Jones, as pictured there, key player.
Felt good off the hand.
ATG, averages 19.8 points per game, 5.5 rebounds, 3.5 assists, shoots nearly 60% from the field as a guard, Spencer. I mean, this guy, I feel like he's one of those players, he's built for March. But they got to take care of business against Cal State Fullerton, Long Beach State, and UC Davis. And really, Spencer, if they do that, they make it to the Big West Final against UC Irvine, even if they fall short. This is a team that they have the metrics to get in still.
And so does UC Irvine.
It's
I mean,
true.
We were talking about deciding, well, which team do we put in between those two? Because frankly, we think they both at least deserve a shout.
Absolutely.
They deserve a chance because, first off, how fun is that? But they have the ratings to back it up. They're two really good teams, and frankly, I think they make for tough matchups for a lot of
Absolutely.
power conference teams.
This team should be a 12 seed at worst.
Yeah.
I mean, they could really do some damage to one of the most stacked, like the degree of separation from a 4 seed and a 7 seed in the NCAA tournament this year is about as close as it's ever been. You know, you got teams like Louisville, who's like the top 7 seed, and like they're right behind like what would be a 5 seed. And you know, you look at that, but you have to, you know, the teams that are going to make these automatic bids are even better than they used to be. So this is looking like it's going to be one of the best fields we've ever seen. But Spencer, there's one team we got to talk about who have never made the dance.
They're outside the bubble right now. There's one way they get in. The Army Black Knights look to complete their best season since Coach K left back in 1980. JP, this team is one of just 3 teams that existed before March Madness who've never made the tournament. And in Kevin Kuwick's second year as head coach, the Bronze Star winner himself, the captain in the Army, they've got a real shot here. This is the weakest Patriot League we've seen since 2015-16. That was the last time there was not a 20-win regular season team. Army is right there. They're 16-13 on the year. They've lost some close games as of late. They've lost both games to Navy. They're ranked 308th in KenPom. But they still got a shot, man.
They have gumption. And by God, they have the troops, baby. They have the Department of Defense budget behind them. And if that can't get them some NIL deals, I don't know what can. They have great uniforms. They have a great logo. I mean, it's just awesome. This is what March is about, man. You know, it's teams like this that keep you coming back, because who is going to tune into the Patriot League tournament other than the
guys.
the guys who have the love for the game?
Yeah, it's like 11 a.m. start. We will be there for the whole thing. I'm just going to assume
those caissons go rolling along. Army.
But they've got 4 scorers that average over 10 points per game. Jalen Ruckers. Nice. Josh Scovins, Ryan Curry, and A.J. Allenspatch. Other than that, JP, their next highest scorer averages 4 a game. It's really these 4 guys in a dream. And for Army, that's what it is. I mean, the top 2 seeds in the Patriot League are American and Bucknell. Army split the season series with them, won both of the home games there. And really, this is a team, if they beat Lehigh on Saturday, they'll enter, I believe it's the 3 seed, depending on what happens with Colgate. It's the 3 or the 4 seed. And that earns you a quarterfinal. You start in the quarters.
Yes.
3 wins in a dream, and Army's in the tournament for the first time ever. And that's unbelievable. I wrote down some of the history here. I mean, the last Army head coach with a winning record in their tenure was Coach K. And that was from 1975 to 1980. He was 73-59. They haven't had a 20-win season since 1976-77. They've never had an 11-win conference season ever. That could win. That could change if they beat Lehigh on Saturday. It's just one of the weirdest stories in basketball. And frankly, this team, who just guts out wins, has a chance to make the tournament. And again, that's what it's all about. It would just be so awesome.
As it would. And as we move from a team that's never made the tournament to a team that it feels like they'll never miss the tournament again, USC women's basketball bounced back from their loss against UConn, but they play Kentucky on Sunday, the last game of the regular season. And it's a Kentucky team, Spencer, that, you know, like we were pretty high on them last week. They went out, they played great against LSU.
They did, and frankly, they should have won that game. They blew a big lead late to a surging Tigers team. But again, South Carolina took care of Ole Miss, who I think is a really good program as well. Chloe Kitts with a triple-double last night. 16 points, 13 boards, 10 assists. The first triple-double since Aaliyah Boston was in town. And again, it's their last regular season game at home in CLA against the Wildcats, a really good team. And for the first time in a while, they're not the #1 seed in the SEC tournament.
Yeah, you know, they're behind the Texas Longhorns their first year in the SEC. If Texas were to lose this weekend and South Carolina was to win, they would split the SEC regular season title, which I'm sure, you know, everyone wants that to happen down in Columbia. But this is a team that, you know, they're kind of in a rare position. Like you said, they're not going to be the #1 seed. Even if Texas does lose, they still own the tiebreaker from beating Carolina in Austin. And, you know, the hunted kind of become the hunters for once. They get a chance to be not the underdog maybe per se, but they'll come in as maybe not the odds-on favorite to win the SEC tournament for the first time in a very long time.
And sometimes, that can really light a fire under a team. And one thing that we haven't talked about a ton with South Carolina that I think is important to mention, the Metrics still love this team.
Oh,
You know what I mean? They're really a top 2 team in the country because they go out and play all these tough opponents. And frankly, I think that's what sets them apart year in and year out. I think Kentucky, it's going to be a really good matchup. I think there's going to be a lot of great guard play. George Amor, Malaysia Fulwiley. There's great guards all around. This one should be fun, a great way to end the season in Colonial Life Arena, and it's going to be a great way to wrap up another episode of Ball Don't Lie, as we usually do. We've got pick'ems coming up right after a quick break.
Get ready to meet the cast of Carolina Tonight. He's the above-average letterbox patron. It's Jamie Bass. She would rather be anywhere else. It's Chloe Brown. They come in to find no one at the surprise party. It's Harry Burgess. His OnlyFans is mostly clips from him on the show. It's Samuel Kander. She's been caught red-handed. It's Ishveen Gujral. He's slaying the house down. It's Will Gunter. She wants something that she wants. It's Liv Moody. He got kicked out of Harvard for anger issues. It's James Nolan. He completely blew this tape. It's Tyler Perrone. He's verbally berating the customer service line. It's Billy Petty. He's wittily wittying onto the stage. It's Jacob Perdue. She's here to tell you, beat it, nerd. It's Fiona Schreier. Often mistaken for someone more famous, it's Camden Speck. He can't find his locker on the first day. It's Asher Thompson. The person in the audition they didn't tell you about, it's Olivia Wamai. He procrastinated editing this video. It's Jonathan E.
Come watch Carolina Tonight in Russell Underground.
Welcome back to BDL Pick'ems. After last week, I have a 30-25 record, while Spencer sits at 36 wins and 19 losses. We're going to roll through these games really quick. It's kind of an entirely men's slate because it's just that kind of weekend in men's basketball. We'll start, of course, with Wake Forest at Duke. We talked about this one, Spencer. Who do you got?
Rolling with the Blue Devils here.
Yeah.
Again, Wake Forest has shown that they don't want to make the tournament. I don't believe they will. But also, I think Duke is just it's a bad matchup for everybody in the country. So I think the Blue Devils are going to get it done.
If Wake themselves don't want to make it, I don't want to pick them. So I'm going with Duke as well. As we move on now to St. Mary's hosting Oregon State. First 1 to 40 probably wins this. Spencer, who do you got?
I'm going to go with St. Mary's at home. I think, they actually have a really good environment out there.
Yes, they do.
A late night game, 10 p.m. tip-off. I think St. Mary's is just an established program at playing the way they want to play. They're going to slow the game down, and that might be how Oregon State wants to play. St. Mary's just has a bit more experience doing it, and I think they're a bit better at it. I think they win at home.
I'm riding with the Gales the whole way, man.
Yeah.
They're one of my favorite teams to follow in mid-major basketball, and why would I stop picking them now? As we now move on to number 11, Wisconsin, going on the road to Michigan State, the number 8 Spartans. Spencer, it's your game of the week.
Boy, you talking about one of my favorite teams in the whole country. Give me Sparty at home. This is a team, JP. The jury's not out yet, and we're not gonna preview any bracketology just yet. But when you tune in on that March 15th show, and you see that I got Sparty going a decent way in the tournament, just know it started here. Spartans win.
I agree, yeah. I think they defeat the Wisconsin Badgers. And frankly, I do not think it is close. I think Michigan State dominates, yeah.
I think Michigan State emerges Big Ten champions. I'll go a step further.
Yep. You know why? Because in our next game, number 16 Maryland takes on number 15 Michigan Wednesday night.
And number 16 Maryland's going to win on the road. That's what I was going to say.
Exactly.
The Terps, get it done.
Kevin Willard, the Crab Five, Derek Queen, one of the best freshmen in the country. I think he gets it done as Michigan finally can't keep getting away with it. They just win so many close games.
They did get away with one the other day.
Yeah,
man. Rutgers just let them slip through their hands.
And I think the Crab Five put a stop to that.
And also Maryland, shot so horribly against Michigan
Well, that's
State.
a Kevin Willard special.
But that's also Michigan State is really good at defending the three ball. I don't think Michigan is as good as it. I think they're going to play through Queen, kick out to their shooters. Terps get it done.
Yep. As we now move on, number 1 Auburn going on the road to number 17 Kentucky this weekend. Spencer, Auburn hasn't been playing as great as they were lately. Do the Tigers stay alive?
I think they do. Even though it's a tough environment, you're going on the road to Rupp, a team that really carried by Otega-Oweh to a win against Oklahoma.
God, it's like their last 18.
Unbelievable run. But again, almost losing to Oklahoma. Kentucky maybe not playing their best ball either. But I'm just going to go with the number 1 seed here. I think they get it done. They've got a guy you can always turn to, and there's not enough value in the world you can put on that.
You know what? That's a really good point. Kentucky's injured as well. They're dealing with a lot of stuff. But, man, there's something about going into Rupp Arena late in the season against a good Kentucky team, and I just can't pick against them. I think that the Wildcats are going to get it done at home against the Tigers. As we now move on to some Big East action, number 21 Marquette going on the road to Georgetown, a team that's been playing, up and down, but much improved in year 2 under Ed Cooley. Spencer, who do you got?
Still going to rock with Marquette here on the road, even though Georgetown, again, has shown signs of improvement. I just still think Marquette has too much for them. I still think Marquette's a really good team. Most of their losses are to really good Big East teams, like your St. John's, your UConns, your Creighton's. And, again, it's a really good conference. I think Marquette gets it done, but it wouldn't surprise me if this one's a little close.
Yeah, Georgetown, even without Thomas Sorber, kind of put the fear of God into UConn this past week. But I think Marquette, they just kind of get back on track. They've been struggling lately, but I think this is a nice building block as we move into the Big East tournament, the greatest in all of sports. A top 15 showdown in the Swamp on Saturday. It's a nighttime game between number 3 Florida and number 12 Texas A&M. Spencer, who do you got?
I'm going to go with Florida, and I don't think this is going to be a fun game to watch.
No, God, no.
Although it will be marketed everywhere as must-see TV. Texas
Williams
A&M
against
might
Joe
score
Goldberg.
45 points, and Florida might score 90.
Yeah.
I think the Gators run away with it. I think Texas A&M's only saving grace would be if Wade Taylor can single-handedly shoot them into the game.
She's a great game. Him and Walter Clayton is going to be one of the more fun bucket-getter matchups. But Florida just has too much beyond that, especially with the return of Micah Handlogton. It's going to be brutal for A&M to try and get anything inside against him and Condor. I think I'm going to go with Florida as well. As we now move on to a rematch of one of the best games of the season, number 9 Iowa State against number 22 Arizona, Saturday. Spencer, who do you got?
I'm going to go with the Cyclones at home. Again, this is another team I'm really big on. They play really tough defense. I think they should have beaten Arizona the first time. But half-court heave sends them to overtime where the Wildcats run away with it in front of their home crowd. That makes sense. That's a huge momentum swing. I don't think something like that happens in Ames. I think the Cyclones control the pace of play. They get their shooters going, and they lock down Caleb Love and co.
I agree completely. I think that this is an Iowa State team that's looking to prove that was a fluke. And kind of cement themselves as a contender for a 2 seed.
They really are.
And if they win the Big 12 tournament, maybe a 1 seed. We'll see what happens there. We're going to take the Cyclones. As we now move on to our final 2 games, it's number 6 Alabama going on the road to number 5 Tennessee. Spencer, who do you got in this very wildly different stylistic matchup?
I'm going to go with the team that just chucks threes. I'm going to go with Bama on the road. Again, Alabama has the number 1 strength of schedule, I believe, in KenPom in the entire country, which is why they're probably, if they win this game, they're going to get the last 1 seed. I think they do. I think they take down Tennessee. And Tennessee is a really weird team. It's like, hey, if Chaz Lanier's playing good, man, they really can score the ball. But if not, they really can't. So I think Alabama is just a team-wide, much better scoring, and I think they're going to get it done in Knoxville.
This is one's tough for me because I really don't believe in either of these teams. This is one of the worst shooting Alabama teams we've seen under Nate Oates. They don't shoot the 3 nearly as well as they have in the past.
Just with all the volume.
Yeah, all the volume. They got blown out by Mizzou, but then they blew out Mississippi State. Tennessee, is Tennessee with Rick Barnes. It's March. But man,
it's the M word for Rick Barnes.
Yeah, I know.
Oh no.
Maybe he still thinks it's February. Maybe he thinks that it has 31 days. I think Tennessee gets it done on Rocky Top against Alabama. Meanwhile, our final game, Monday, 9 p.m., the unranked Kansas Jayhawks.
That feels good, doesn't it?
The first time in forever. Go on the road against number 4 Houston. It's the old guard of the Big 12 trying to make one last grasp for success against the new kid on the block, Spencer. Who do you got?
They're grasping for air, buddy. The Cougs run away with it at home and just stomp out the Jayhawks in Houston.
LJ Cryer, 25 points, 5 steals. Kansas on the road,
Hunter Dickinson,
they lose again.
0 for 10, 2 points from free throws.
AJ Storr, $1 million per made shot. Cougs roll.
You heard it here first on Ball Don't Lie. What all of we said will happen. That's going to do it for this episode. And be sure to follow us on Instagram, X, and TikTok at SGTV at USC.
To keep up with all of our content, be sure to also visit us online at sgtv@usc.com. For SGTV, I'm JP Barry.
And before we sign off completely, JP, tune into the hockey game tonight. What time is it at the Plex?
It's at 8:30.
8:30.
Do it or there will be doom that falls upon you.
You heard it one last time from these guys from the Plex. It would mean a lot if you tune in. I'm Spencer Ball, and from all of us here at SGTV, have a great weekend, Carolina.
Forever to thee.